All right, welcome to another episode of Powerchats with Chris and Sav. And actually, today we have Kristen on board as well, my lovely wife, the amazing Kristen. So obviously, with COVID going on, she is at home at the moment, which is awesome. I'm actually not at home more than she's at home. Yeah, it's swapped our roles. But today we are going to talk about keys to success. So Savannah, obviously, she works from home. She's an entrepreneur as well as I am. Kristen works. She has been doing events for over a decade.
Almost 2 decades.
Almost 2 decades. So she knows what it takes to run a busy, what's the biggest conference that you run? The biggest amount of people?
500 people across 3 days, probably.
Yeah. So 500 organized events for 500 people over 3 days, taking people to Rugby World Cup, taking people to South Africa. Yeah, so she makes, let's be honest, she makes me look like I'm not busy at all. So we're going to talk about keys to success today. So I don't know I guess I'll just go into it first. I mean, obviously being an ex-cop, there's pretty high pressure in situations. So the keys to success kind of continue. For me, I've pretty much realized, and I've worked it out in the last year or so, what it really is for me. And for me, it's having a set goal, knowing where you want to get to, and having that fleshed out quite well. You can do it on the spot. You can do it, like for me, when I was in the police, it was on the spot. It was like, okay, cool. What's the outcome that we need from this situation? What do we need? And then it's your why you're there. What it is that's actually, again, kind of that purpose, but why you're actually doing what you're doing. Because if you don't have that why, then you just kind of lose that purpose and you lose that drive and that motivation, especially for things that take a long time. And then focus. It's just shifting that focus, making sure that you're focused on those two things always. But yeah, that's kind of, for me, that's where it all kind of starts. I get those things and then it's like, okay, cool, let's create a plan. Let's figure out how to make it happen.
What's your definition of success? Because I suppose that's a really good place to start too. Because if you're working towards something, what is it that you're working towards?
So for me, it differs. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it differs. It depends on the situation. Success is just having a good outcome, I guess, for me. Whatever that looks like for whatever it is. Like in the police, if you went to a car crash and there were people injured, it was saving lives, without causing more injury or harm to other people. Business-wise now, it's so that I have freedom, flexible freedom to be able to, what used to be able to travel whenever I wanted. but it will be
out the window for a while.
It will be in the future. Because we like to travel a lot. We travel overseas at least once a year normally. So yeah, or be able to, last year I had a friend who was like, oh, let's go on a motorcycle ride. So he came over, not a drop of a hat, but kind of it was only a few months, kind of organized. I think it was August. We went, let's do this. And in October he was here. So just being able to do that, being able to drop to go hunting, things like that. So that I have that flexible freedom to be able to do it.
I suppose you can look at it on two different levels, right? You've got micro success and macro success, and they're very different. So obviously the outcome of you applying yourself in an emergency situation, that's obviously got a very different outcome that could be met in a much shorter time frame than, say, starting a business and running that over, say, 2 decades and ultimately finding success in that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because in those police situations, or even, Kristen says it to me all the time. She's like, fuck, this shit can be falling down around you, and yet you're the calmest person in the room.
I think those success is relative to a person, because what success looks like to one person is completely different to another. For some people it's making millions of dollars. For others it's being able to have a family and not have to worry about work. For others it's traveling all the time, so yeah, like you say, you've got success of the outcome of what you're doing, I suppose, but then ultimately what success looks like in the broader sense. I suppose I always look at it of when I'm 90 sitting in a rocking chair, hopefully, hopefully with this guy, who knows, what will I want to have achieved if I look backwards, so I have always kind of got an ultimate goal, and then like layers of goals based on what I'm doing at that particular point in time.
Yeah. And how have you found at the moment, given that you're at home, because you're entire industry is shut down.
Yep.
Like, how's that affected your, I guess, sense of purpose, or maybe not to be so dramatic, just like day to day?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's hit me in waves, I suppose. I think you don't know much about my backstory or my personal life, but I've had some pretty interesting things happen to me in my 36 years almost on this planet. And I think I would describe it as grief, to be honest. I think that I woke up one day and my entire world had just changed, overnight through no fault of my own, nothing I had done. So it's not like I messed up and, done something to upset somebody and got fired, or, something completely outside of my control, and loss. So therefore grief. And I realized that pretty early on. So I kind of went through all those stages of like anger, wanting somebody to blame, like trying to find a reason why this is happening. And then kind of coming through that's like, well, it's acceptance, I can't do anything about it. So I've just got to focus on what I can control and things that I can't control. I think that's what I've done. And also I think ultimately, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, the fact that the illusion of control, the illusion that everybody thinks that they have some sort of control, and the reality is you have no control over anything. You wake up today and something could change, and that's obviously the world has seen that happen. So yeah, I think just focusing on what I can, looking at opportunities. I think this is natural to get when you're an events person or in events and that kind of industry, and I've done it for so long. I'm naturally solution focused. My brain instantly goes to, how can I fix this? How can I find a solution to the situation? And so that's what I've been doing. It's just looking at possible future opportunities, and the pendulum will swing the other way. People are going to be deprived of travel, going to be deprived of human contact and events and being around others. And as soon as people can do that again, it's going to go, it's like pulling a pendulum to here and holding onto it tightly, and then eventually somebody's going to let it go and it's just going to swing in the other direction. So, just looking forward to that day. And yeah, looking for the opportunities amongst that. So yeah, I'm a pretty resilient person, I feel. So I don't know, Chris will probably tell you or talk to you more about that, again, having gone through with him what he went through and dealing with all that. So I think Chris talks about this a lot, but I just look for I'm just grateful. I just look for the positive things in the situation. It's like, I've got a husband that's managed to go out and get some other work so that we can keep paying the mortgage. I've got a roof over my head. I can feed myself. Reality is I'm better off than a lot of other people. So I just kind of keep that top of mind all the time. Just carry on, wake up and, go, holy hell, is this happening? Every time I leave my house, I try and stay away from the news now and just kind of go, wow, when I leave home, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Everything's kind of different. So try not to think about it too much, I think. So yeah.
It is wild how little control we actually do have. We think that, we walk around our lives and we think that we've got this 70 to 100 years of just pure control. And the closer you get to the end of that time frame, you're like, wow, I really don't. I'm just a puppet and anything can happen. And ultimately finding like the positives and finding things to be grateful for in the micro moments is so important, because
I think that whole control thing, I saw a really good quote. Let me see if I can find it. It was something like, basically what the world is waking up to is the realization of lack of control, like that you don't really have control. I'm gonna find it. You carry on speaking, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a beautiful realization, and it can be really confronting though.
Really for a lot of people, they don't know how to cope with that, and that's exactly what I think is going on, right? Here we go. What we're watching is the withdrawal of people, going through the withdrawal of the emotional addiction to the myth of certainty.
I like that. Myth of certainty.
Emotional addiction to the myth of certainty. Everybody's addicted to this, like, oh, I've got to wake up every day and, you know, I've got to be certain that this is going to happen or that is going to happen. Or I was having a conversation with Chris's mum, and it was really funny. You know, we've had an interesting relationship over the almost 13 years I've been with Chris, and you know, we get on really well now. And her and I were chatting. She goes to me, considering the circumstances, Chris, you're sounding really calm. She's like, I've never heard you sound like this. And I said, that's really odd, because you know, at that point I didn't feel particularly calm. And she said, I just think it's that thing. I've just realized I have no control over anything, you know, and I've lived my life and through this lens of like, I have to do that again, and coming back to success and achievement, and like, I've got to do this and I've got to achieve this, and I've got to take care of us, and I've got to take care of me, and I've got to, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm like, everything that I could do to take care of us was gone, you know. It's like, shit, actually I can't do this, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't, you know. And for a little while it was like, right, I've got to find another job, and I've got to, and then I was like, I can't even do that, you know. It's like, I got told by somebody I was overqualified. They wouldn't hire me because I had too much, you know. And it's just like, okay, you know, all these people. And then I like read this, you know, stories of pilots working at Countdown, and I'm like, you know, everybody's out there searching for these few jobs that are currently available, and you know, yeah, everything that I was like, okay, I can't be the one to take care of us right now. I just can't. There's no way I can. It's like, let go of that belief that that's my role or that's my job. And it's okay, all right, what's next? You know, it's weird.
And that requires radical acceptance, and radical acceptance can be extremely life-changing, but it takes often a major change in your life to kind of get there. I have this theory that often we actually have to hit rock bottom, unfortunately, to kind of redirect ourselves, because there's something in us, it's like our ego, that need for control goes, well, this is what I need to be doing. This is what I should be doing. These expectations that we impose on ourselves and we impose on others. And then suddenly, when that certainty, that thing that we thought was a sure thing is gone, we go, huh, who am I? What am I doing? What year is it? Like, you know, you end up completely lost. And that radical acceptance only comes when you're actually forced to. It's like you're required to change, because if you don't, well, then you suffer, and no one likes staying in suffering. So the alternative is you innovate, you change, and you shift, and you redirect.
It's that where's the pain greater? Like for me, I think back to my because we run away from pain. We're humans. We don't like pain. You know, it's in our nature to run away from pain.
But that exacerbates pain. It makes pain greater. It grows it. It's literally fuel to the fire.
Yeah. And so if I think back to like what happened with what was, you know, happening with me and stuff, is my thing was I've noticed that I was in so much pain, and I didn't want to be in that pain anymore. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get out of this pain? And then that's what I do. And now I continuously, in a way, run away from that pain, because I never want to be back there again. And I don't want anybody else to be back there. So it's the same thing. It's like, okay, cool. We're in a situation now where we're like, okay, yeah, we got all this stuff going on, but let's do what we can to make things happen so that we're not sitting there dwelling in that pain all the time of, I can't actually go to work. I can't actually go do anything.
Yeah.
Some things take longer than others.
Yeah, and just like finding gratitude for minor things. It's also about looking at it's about reframing your language and going, okay, so I can't do this and I can't do that, and those are facts. However, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
These are the things that I can do. These are the things that I 100% have control over, and they might be few, but there's something.
Oh, totally. And back to your point about having something to need to happen to take action, or you know, it's not until something's removed that you can move forward in another area, or you know, and I think it's that beautiful saying of life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And you know, sitting there and looking at it and going, maybe this is the opportunity, or maybe this is the moment I needed to be able to stop And, you know, I've worked full time for 20 years. I've had no choice. You know, I've been working full time since I was 16 years old. And so for me, I'm like, this is the first time in my life where I have not been on holiday. You know, holiday is different. Holiday is like fun, you're going somewhere, it's a choice, you're spending time with your loved ones or whatever. This is like a literal stop of all things, which for me, if you know anything about me, just my personality and my job, my career is a go, 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 by most people's standards, a high stress environment, you know. And Chris said something to me this morning. He goes, well, how did you stop overwhelm when you're doing events? I said, I don't feel overwhelmed doing events. And he goes, what? Most people would be stressed out of their mind. I said, yeah, but I've done it for so long. It becomes so ingrained in my psyche, I just don't even think about it. You know, it's something I've done for 20 years now. Almost scary. I just do it. It's so autopilot. I just don't think about it. And people say that to me often. They watch me and they're like, how the hell do you take, you know, a group of 80 people, 90 people to South Africa for 7 days? You know, like all these moving parts. I'm like, I don't know, I just do it. You just do it. So I think it's that, you know, once you remove that, it's that realization of, well, this is the moment now where I've got the space to be able to think about other things, think about what else I could do, you know. And I've toyed with the idea of doing my own business for years, and I've always been, I'm too busy, I don't have time, I don't have, you know, all these excuses. And then all those excuses are removed now. It's like, well, I do have time, I have plenty of time. You know, so it's like all of a sudden I had this, I think when I was talking to Chris's mum, this moment of like, well, maybe this is meant to have happened to me so that I could have the space to be able to think about these other things. So again, it's that gratitude of what can I do, not what's been taken, what can't I do, you know.
So that certainty's been taken away, so now it's like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll be okay with uncertainty.
Yeah, but I think it takes a lot to get to that point. Back to your point, there's a lot of people out there that won't be able to think like this. And I had another friend that I had a conversation with, and we were talking about, in the beginning, she works in the same industry as me, and we were trying to come up with like, well, how could we come up with solutions and what else could we do? And, you know, and she said to me, she goes, it's really hard to be in that mindset in this current environment. It takes a lot to pull yourself from the either feeling sorry for yourself or thinking the whole world's out to get you or this is terrible, you know, to, okay, how can I reframe this? So, you know, I think people that will thrive and survive through this are people that can, you know, change their mindset and, yeah, look to what is good, not what is bad, you know. What's wrong is always there, but so is what's right.
I think that comes into that whole success thing as well, though. Like, if you're wanting to be successful, you'll find a way.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll always find a way. It's like, you know, I've been in some crazy situations, you know, cars upside down, cars crunched all up, having to cut people out of cars, things like that. It's like, okay, how are we going to get these people out? How are we going to keep this person stable until fire department gets here and can cut them out? And you figure out a way. It's always, you find a way. And I think for me, that built a lot of resilience in me, because it's like, I'm here, everybody here is looking at me because I'm in uniform. I have to look like I at least have an idea of what the fuck I'm doing.
The authority.
I had no fucking clue. I just went, okay, choose a thing and go. And I think that's a big thing with success as well, is you just choose a thing and go. If it fucks up, you go, okay, cool, that fucked up, and choose another thing. And you just continually do it.
But that is a muscle that needs to be flexed.
Yeah,
though. It
has to be slowly worked, and some people get thrown into the deep end and they just thrive on it because it's just their nature from experience through life. And some people, they've got to really work that muscle really hard. But yeah, for success, it's working to your strengths. I remember you told me this one time. It was like, don't work to your weaknesses and improve your weaknesses and improve your strengths.
Yeah.
And get really fucking good at your strengths.
Get really good at what you're really good at and forget what you're bad at. Somebody smart told me that once. It's very true. There's no point, you know, you can find somebody else to help you with the things you're not good at. But you're good at, every human being is good at something. They're very good at something. And that's your innate talent, and that's where you should be focusing focusing your time, I suppose. And it was an old boss of mine. He said that to me when I took over a role where all of a sudden I was managing a team of people. And he said to me, you know, that's the point of putting together a team of people, is that you don't want everybody to be good at the same thing. You want everybody to have different skill sets. And he was like, and you need to figure out what you're really good at and get really, really good at it, because then you become indispensable, because then you become, you know, people look to you for that. That's where you become successful, is because you're, you know, people come to you, they're like, she's extremely good at X, or, you know, this is where we can always count on this person, or, you know, I think it's an interesting point though, to the success point of, you know, you either do or you do, like, as in, you must, for us, we're the type of people, we're like, well, we want to be successful and we don't want to lose our house, and we don't want to, you know, so it was like, we'll find a way, we'll make this work, well, this will happen. I think the intriguing thing to me is the people that go the other way. And I've always had this like life, I don't know, I love like thinking about these things of like, why does one person go that way in this circumstance and somebody else go that way? That's something I always ponder, of what makes a person choose to want to do and be successful, and somebody else in this circumstance just give up and just go, nah, it's too hard, like, oh, somebody else will figure it out for me, or I can't, you know, I can't be bothered, or you know, I always find that intriguing.
I would wonder.
Success is not a given. It's, you got to, you know, it's hard work. You got to put in the hard yards. So
with those people that go the other way and kind of sit back and go, no, it's fine, someone else will do this for me, or why bother? I'd argue that maybe they haven't reached their rock bottom yet. Like, pressure does something to us. And I think, I mean, I have strong opinions about the way the world works as it is. And I'm excited to see how the economy shifts in terms of actual shifts, because everyone clocks in at 9 and clocks out at 5. And the reality is those 8 hours are probably not always productive. People do overtime and people fuck around for hours every single day. And I think that if you were to say, hey, I'm going to get you to clock in at 9 today, but you got to leave at 12, you'd probably get the same amount of work done in those hours as you would if you'd stuck around till 5. I would argue that pressure would create more productivity. And so when it comes to people who decide that, you know, they're not going to bother, that there's nothing there, perhaps they just don't perceive the risk to be great enough, Chris, like you said before. The what did you say? The change needs to be like the risk or reward needs to be strong enough in order to create change, right? So is it that these people are inherently lazy, and they do exist? Or is it that those people need more pressure, that they aren't the kind of people that stop the minute the jug starts boiling? They're the people that need the jug to be whistling before they do anything.
Yeah.
Either that or they haven't had that. Again, it's like that resilience thing, right? They haven't had something happen. Again, they haven't had a rock bottom, or they haven't had something happen to them that's made them realize that the alternative is greater, you know, or that, you know, like, as in they've grown up in a life, and I'm not being rude, I'm thinking of my own circumstances here. They've grown up in a really, you know, good home where they wanted for nothing. Their life's been, you know, like a Chris, right? They've been relatively, and I say easy, I don't like using the word easy. Life's not easy, but, you know, like, you know, parents that earn good money, a roof over their head, they never had to worry about anything, you know, they've gone on, they've, you know, either, I don't know, started working or gone to university, like things have just kind of happened, and they've not really had anything, you know, detrimental or negative by most people's perceptions, what negative looks like happen to them. So they haven't had to build that, I guess, resilience at an early age. And there's heaps of studies into that in itself about, you know, building resilience at a young age, and why some people go down that track and other people go down that track. So I think it could probably be the same, you know, across that idea of success, that, you know, as you say, something hasn't happened yet to make them need to put themselves in a position where they have to think about a different way or a different thought process, maybe. You know. Yeah, I think for me, mine's been inherent since I was 16. Right. I've had a choice, you know, and that goes back to that pressure I put on myself for such a long time of, I have to be the one to do this because there is nobody else. I don't have a safety net. I don't have parents with money. I don't, I'm a big believer in insurance because for me, I'm like, nobody else, I've got to look after myself. And if that fails, then I need something else there. So that's my responsibility to make sure that I've got those things in place. And I think that's interesting again, because like all these safety nets I've put in place for all this time, none of them currently apply. I can't claim insurance right now. I'm not sick. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not being made redundant. So all of a sudden, all these things that are perceived controls or perceived ways of making sure you're okay are they're all gone, or they don't apply.
I wonder if you'll see a pandemic insurance come out after this.
Oh, I doubt it. Insurance is a whole nother topic we could go down for another day. But yeah, I think, so for me, it's been, I've had no choice. I haven't had an option.
I think there's two things there though. And I think this is where it kind of comes into the same thing with Savannah around that people haven't hit the rock bottom. In turn, you have somebody there's tons of people out there that were in your same situation. Didn't have parents that, this and that, but yet they don't give a fuck in blank terms. They have the same exact, I don't have a choice that you put on yourself, but they go, I don't care. I'm just going to kind of cruise along, and I got welfare, I've got these, I've got this, and
I think to a person though,
I think it has to do with what happened and how you relate to incidents before you got to that stage of I don't have a choice.
I think for me, mine was I don't ever want to be in this situation ever again. And I when I was young, I always thought I'd have children. Not having children, again, topic for another day. But for me, at that point in my life, I was like, if I have kids, I do not want them to ever feel like I do. Ever. I don't ever want them to wake up and not know if they're going to get dinner today. I don't ever want them to wake up and my parents would have the bank literally knocking on their door trying to take their house because they didn't have money to pay the mortgage. I clearly have recollections of people coming to my mother's door and knocking on the door, debt collectors coming to basically take my parents' things away. So for me it was that, again, lack of security, lack of control, lack of certainty. It was I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow and have a place to sleep. I don't know if I'm going to wake up. And not to get me wrong, my parents did everything they could to make sure that was there, but because of their circumstances that they couldn't always provide. So for me, it was shit, I don't want this for my life. I don't want this for my children. I don't,
So there's your why.
That was my why. But again, this also interesting to what you say, comes down to different perceived perceptions based on what your story is or what you make of it.
Your point of reference.
Yeah, I'm an eldest child and I have two siblings. And for my sister, very different story, very different belief of her life, very different. My mum, I remember my mum sitting me down and being like, don't do what I've done. And I literally haven't. I've done the exact opposite of what my mother did.
I think that's very humble of your mum to say, just FYI. That's very humble and great. I'm not a parent. But I think that's safe to say that's fairly strong advice, because you should always seek advice from someone who's in the position you want to be in. And if your mum said, hey, I don't want you to be in my position, don't look to me as your role model in that aspect.
Totally. She was her thing was, I love you. I would never give you back, but don't do what I did. Don't have children at 20. Don't not have a career. Don't not have things figured out so that you don't know where you're going to freaking feed your children. She's just don't do this. Don't travel the world. She's find the right man, settle down when you're ready. But don't do what I did, was basically the advice I got given, probably when I was about 12 years old. Whereas my sister literally has done a carbon copy of my mother's life, not to the point where she's lucky, she's got money and she can survive and she's got 3 children, but she literally did the exact same thing. Got married at 19, had 3 kids, got married young to the guy that she, it's just, again, met in high school, and she's happy, don't get me wrong, but again, it's that whole, and she's not really wanted to work. She's not really ever, she's trying now, which I think that's an age and maturity thing. She's young, quite a bit younger than me, but it's just so interesting to me because I'm like, and we were again talking about this the other night, like, got 3 kids that grew up in the same household with the perceived same set of circumstances that have all gone on to do. I think my brother and I are a lot more alike in that whole wanting to be successful, have a career, make good money type of thing. But we've all gone through very different ways when it comes to just everything, really. Like, I look at, like, my brother's probably good in the respect of he's always earned good money and he's always, you know, but then when it comes to relationships, he's freaking terrible. Like, terrible. Like, he has no good relationships with anybody.
If he listens to this, he's gonna be like,
sorry, bro, but like, I love you, but you know, it's true, right? Like, we've all taken, I think, different things. That's my perception. We've all taken different things from our parents' relationships. And for me, and Chris and I have also talked about this, grew up in homes where our parents fought a lot, and our parents' marriages were not happy. So for me, I was like, again, don't want that, avoid that, you know.
We
like,
said that in the very beginning,
you know,
our relationship, that our parents' relationships were very similar, and they're like, if we ever end up like that, we're not staying together.
We're not staying together. Like, the life's too short to spend 20 years with somebody that you fight and argue with every single day, or you don't love. Like, to us, that seems so completely irrelevant and irrational. Like, we would never do that. But then, you know, it's
an interesting thing, because it all goes around that whole success thing, just how you've been, different circumstances that have happened, I think, create what success is for you, but also how you achieve success.
But that comes back to my very first point. Success looks different to everybody.
Yeah. So for me, a marker of success, which might seem really ridiculous, but is to walk into the supermarket and literally pick up anything I want and not have to worry about it. Like, that might seem really silly, but not have to worry about buying, not have to worry about, you know, whether my card's gonna be accepted or be declined. And it's like, okay, if I'm really like feeling that organic, expensive shit that day, like, I can put it in my trolley comfortably and confidently and walk out and be like, yeah.
I can relate to that, Savannah. I remember being back at university, and I mean, I haven't really had to stress over money, but I remember back, and it wasn't me, but it was a person in front of me, and they literally had a trolley of food and stuff, and they had to actually give like a quarter of it. They had to be like, oh, I don't need that, I need this, I don't need that. Right. I remember, I even have it sometimes now. I'm like, I don't actually have to worry about that now. And there's been times where I've seen somebody, like, even with now, I'm like, you know, I am grateful for what we have and what we've created and things like that. I've had times where I've seen somebody doing that, like they had to put 1 or 2 things back because it was just over that limit of what they could actually pay. I was like, let me get that. And I actually just get it for them, because I'm like, that's success for me, to be able to give to other people. And also the same thing, not having to sit there and go, shit, okay, I only have $20 in my account, but I need to be able to pay for dinner for the rest of the week.
I think that would be, for me, that was my reality growing up. Like, I remember my dad would go to the supermarket with a calculator. That was, you know, and there was the list, there was the calculator, and everything that went in the trolley would be put into the calculator, because it was like, for my dad's shame, I think, for him, was getting to the end and realizing he couldn't afford to pay for what he had. So for him, it was like, okay, control over the situation. I'll take my calculator and I'll make sure as I go that I'm not going to get to the end and be embarrassed. You know, I think for males, inherently, not being able to provide it is an embarrassment factor. So for my father, it was like, no, you know, and I clearly remember, going to the supermarket, and every trip it was adding it up. So I completely understand the whole just being able to walk in and buy what you want, you know, and not being concerned that you can't afford to, you know, your card's going to decline or you can't afford to pay for it or whatever.
So I'd say top level, then, we all seem to be on the same page. And I think most people listening would go, oh yeah, I think success in the generally accepted term is like, have money, have a good life. But I think, what we've spoken about, it comes down to a lot more than that, and it's being comfortable and actually fulfilled. And I would say, going back to those people who perhaps don't have any struggles or point of reference of what it is like to not feel successful in a general term, then they would have less fulfilling lives, because the reward of success, whatever that looks like, however that feels, comes from the work that gets put in. And I think ultimately that's what leads to a fulfilling life, is when you know that you've actually contributed something tangible and something greater than yourself, like to yourself. You've lived a life where you've gone, hey, I look back and yeah, I can afford these things, maybe in the sense of money. I get to love this person in the sense of relationships. I'm healthy in the sense of the investments you put in your body, and you can go, and I worked for every single one of those.
I think there's some people out there that they just don't have any desire for that as well. And for me, it's always finding those people and actually helping them to find that desire. Because like you said, when you have that really fulfilled life, it's because you've worked for something hard. You've been able to do it. Like for me, I remember like one of my clients came to a landmark seminar, and she wanted to sign up for it and wanted to actually do it. And I was like, okay, I did everything that I could. I even paid the deposit, because I was like, okay, I'm in a better financial position than she is right now. I'll pay for the deposit, which was like a quarter of the fee. And I was like, I'll pay for that because I know you're going to get this out of this, and it's going to in turn make you feel more fulfilled than you even know that you can right now. And I think there's people out there that don't even know what fulfilled feels like or looks like. And so it's, for them, success is what it is. It's kind of like that saying of, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you don't know that, if you never look at, you've never been raised to look at those people that are, multi-millionaires, and to be able to, even strive to be one of them, or to have that situation where you have, you got to scrounge for, you're kind of that just middle ground, and everything just looks good, and everything, your life looks perfect, the white picket fence and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost in that bubble. Then I think they don't know what they don't know.
I also think, though, that most people are just happy with good. I think there's a lot of people out there that are just happy with, my life's good. Like, it's not amazing and incredible, but it's okay. So I'll just, I'm not in the situation where I've got to worry about money, but I'm also not like amazingly fulfilled or, extremely happy every day, but I'm good. And so I'm not going to ever, they're almost scared to lose that.
Well, it's that certainty. Why push the border, or push the boundary? Because if I have what I have right now and it's good, I'm happy with what I have right now. If I push it, maybe I'm going to lose it. So maybe I'll just stay where I'm at. I'll just kind of chug through life.
I'm not saying it necessarily means that they're not successful. I think that's just, they could do more. There's a lot of people out there that could do more than what they do. They're just happy with good. They're happy with good. That's,
Yeah.
I know lots of people like that. I know lots of people.
I encounter them every day with what I do. Everybody wants to get into the police, but half the people I
can at least think of a half a dozen people I know right now who could be doing other things that could be, could have created or be living a life that's a lot more fulfilling to them, but they choose to settle with good, or they choose to settle with what is easy, not what is right. What is okay, I've got a good life, I earn good money, I'm happy, I don't really know what else I could do, or I don't really know where else I could go, so this is fine. So I'll just stick with this,
That's why the struggle's so great, because it makes you feel alive. So many people go through their life just feeling like they've looked back and they've gone, wow, okay, there wasn't like anything dramatic that happened. There wasn't there was like, what happened in my life, like I did a couple things, and now it's my time. And the struggle, that point of reference, that the context is actually what makes us feel like fired up. And I was scrolling through Instagram this morning. I love Jordan Peterson, and he actually put up this post, and he said, in quotations, "You're okay the way you are is not the right story. The right story is you're way less than you could be." And that's what ignites the fire within. Because when you realize that you have so much more potential, you have so much more to give the world, something in you is like, okay, I feel like this itch to do more, or just like explore, or follow the curiosity, and maybe see what it is that I am capable of. And that's what makes like a fulfilling life, is actually putting yourself in the fire in a way. I think that we actually do seek out struggles. I think that that's why things like Tough Mudders exist, because who in their right mind thinks that it's a fun idea to like crawl through mud and over challenges
I agree.
and like through barbed wire, but not only do that, pay someone to do that. Like, you're not getting paid to do it, you're paying someone else to do it. So
This guy likes
we
stuff
need
like that.
but we need
God.
to struggle. I ran a marathon for precisely that reason, and I know people have done far longer events and far harder things, but I attacked my marathon with the mentality of like, I do hard things, because that gives me a point of reference for when I go to do something else. I go, this is actually easy, and I'm gonna do it because I know I can, because our bodies can totally keep up with that distance.
It's interesting you say that, because I did, like, obviously in the police, I joined the police and I wanted to do armed defenders. So the guys, if you're listening to this in the States, it's like SWAT team. It's like the police is not quite SAS, but the police is special forces kind of thing. You know, they're the guys who in the black pajamas run around balaclavas with the guns. And they're the guys who go into a house when everybody else is running out, even the cops are running out of it. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I was training for that. Literally, I didn't stop training from the day that I decided I wanted to be a cop until I left, pretty much. But, you know, I was training for that, and I was like, okay, I know I'm mentally tough, but I need to do something to challenge myself, because I know the selection for armed defenders is going to be brutal. So I literally paid 250 New Zealand dollars to be beasted for 13 hours. Literally beasted by a special forces guy. Was here, and like there was 6 of us with firemen carrying each other. Literally, I couldn't walk the next day. I couldn't. At the end of the day, I couldn't lift a beer off the table without having it right up against my chest. We almost asked for straws. That's how much. But it just showed me, you know. And I was going into that. My why for going into that was I want to make sure that I'm mentally tough, because I knew I was, but I wanted to double check it. And that was just like you said, seeking out the challenge, seeking out the struggle. I was like, I want somebody that is beyond me to kick the shit out of me.
It's an interesting point, because I think it's that whole, we've talked about like your why and your why you do what you do. See, like, oh, they're seeking out a struggle, seeking out the pain. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, like, all of a sudden, I've always known this, but for me, mine's the opposite. Like, why I do what I do is because I want to show people extreme joy. I want to show people what it's like to go to South Africa and hop on a safari truck and see an elephant standing a meter away, something that they never thought they would ever experience in their entire lives, or taking them to Japan and bringing in proper geisha that most people in a group of 60 freaking people stood around and just stared at these 4 women like, what do we do? You know, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd see a real geisha in my entire life, you know, stuff like that. So for me, my why for why I do what I do is the other end of the scale. Like, I think, I don't know if most people know this, but like we were saying, most people either stay attached to pain or they seek out joy. Human beings want to experience extreme pleasure. It's why they do stupid things, just like why they do stupid things at the other end of the scale. So for me, mine is creating experiences for people they would never see otherwise.
I think everybody runs towards joy. Like, even you think about that.
Well, they run from pain. Or they hold on to it.
Well, also to compare it, like, you know, you think about mine, that special forces day, you know, 13 hours we did. I think it was like 46 kilometers in the day with a pack on, firemen carrying, all this kind of crazy stuff. But at the end of it, the joy out of completing it. Yeah. You know, it's a sadistic thing to think about. It's the same thing with people that their first marathon. Like, I'm sure, Savannah, you can relate to your first marathon. You're like, this is fucking painful through the whole thing. You get to the end, it's like, oh my God, I accomplished the joy, the sense of joy at the end of it overwhelms all the pain, all the training, everything it took to get there. It's the same thing with you. You take these people, you know, what you've been doing is taking these people on these incentives. So they have to work and they have to put through that grit and that pain and that sweat and that struggle. And then they get something at the end of it, and it's, you know, the reward or the joy at the end of it.
Yeah, of course. It's always got to be. Well, that's how humans work. Humans work on a reward-based, cycle. It's a great book, which, like,
I guess that's another key to success, is to focus on the reward at the end.
Yeah, it's human beings are wired that way though. Like there's for those that listen, there's a really great book which I read. It's called the Power of Habit. It talks about breaking. I don't know if you've read it or heard of it, Savannah. It's based about breaking habits. So it's meant to be read to, like, you know, stop smoking or lose weight or whatever. When I read it from the other angle. I read it from, well, how do you create a habit? Like, how do you create a good habit? If you can get rid of a bad habit, then you can create a good habit. And I actually read it before I started training. I used to bodybuild. So I did 3 bodybuilding shows. I'm just as weird as you guys. I understand what it's like to put your body through intense, you know, training and stuff to get a reward at the other end. But I read it from that, okay, well, how does the brain work to create that habit? Like, I want to now create a habit where I have to get out of bed and train in the morning. I was not a morning person. Even now I'm more naturally inclined to be a night owl, but I had no other time in my day. So how do I do that? Okay, I've got to it's got to become habitual. You've got to do it so often that your brain just doesn't even think about it. It just does it. Even now, I still get up and train when my life is normal and I can go to a gym. I still get up and train in the morning. Like, it's just so inherently natural now.
We spoke about this actually last week, and yeah, I raised the point that you have to fuse it with your identity, because you said very clearly just now, I wasn't a morning person, but now, because you've done it so often and you've really gone through that gritty phase, it's part of your identity and it's fused with who you are.
Yeah, so I think it's the same thing as that whole habit, creating habitual habits, you know, and training the brain to, you know, it doesn't think about it, it just becomes naturally, inherently part of what you do. And I think it's probably one of the books that, in a way, not changed my life, I think it's an extreme, but in a way it did change my life. It was a really great book at that particular point in my life to read. I've recommended it to a lot of people from both angles, people that are wanting to try and start doing something, people are wanting to try and stop doing something. You know, and it's again, the human brain looks for reward. It absolutely, that's how the human brain works. It wants to see, if I'm going to put in all this hard work, then what am I getting at the other end? There's no way that your brain will think, oh, I'm just going to put myself through that shit for no purpose whatsoever. You know, you've got to have a goal. You've got to have the reward at the end. You know, for you it was doing crazy shit because you were training for a purpose. You know, for you doing a marathon, it's I want to be able to push myself. You know, for me, bodybuilding, it was I want to see the limits that I can take myself to. And for me, it was never physical. I think that's the thing. When most people go, oh, bodybuilding, like training, and it's really hard on your body. I'm like, actually, I never did it for my body. I did it to see how far I could push my brain, because I know that it's actually 90% mental and like 10% physical. Like most sports, you know. So yeah, but the brain always looks for reward. Always. It's never going to do anything without the reward at the end. Again, unless you are, I feel, put in a set of circumstances you have no control over. And even then, I think it's still a reward.
To get out of a situation, you know.
Yeah, interesting thought.
What would be your 3 key things to success, Savannah?
Having defined what success actually looks like in the micro and the macro for me. Definitely. 2 would have to be supportive people. So like really checking my circle and making sure that I'm not sharing what I'm aiming for with just anybody, that I'm, you know, like surrounding myself with people that are going to help me get there, and believe in me. And consistency, just constantly showing up, making habits, creating a routine, creating systems, and being open and flexible to all of that changing, to my circle changing, to what I'm aiming for changing, and the routine that's going to get me there changing. Yeah.
How do you, Kristen?
For me, mine is, and again, if I look back at, I suppose, by most people's standards, I've been reasonably successful in my career. I think definitely, like you said, knowing what you want and never wavering in whatever it takes to get there. So I think, and writing it down, like having a goal and putting it on paper, not having it in your head. Like whatever there is, you know, having it written down. And Chris knows this, years and years ago, I wrote down that I wanted to do events and travel the world. There we go, you know. And when I wrote it down, I thought, this is freaking insane. This is never going to happen. There's no jobs like this in New Zealand. I'm never going to find this, you know. Well, I sorted out because that was it. Like, there was no way I wasn't going to do that. So writing it down and having unwavering, you know, no matter what, like you say though, having to maybe go off the path, doing something that might take you there. You're not quite sure how, but you know, you go that way anyway. What else? Definitely routine. You know, having a routine that makes you successful, making sure you're setting yourself up for those habits. You know, like, you're not going to be successful if you don't sleep properly and you eat crap and you don't take care of your body and your brain, and you know,
basics.
So making sure that you're sleeping as well as you can, eating as well as you can, and realizing and knowing that if that's not happening, that you need to find the ways to do that, to seek out help. And that would be my third one, like finding the right people to help you get to where you want to go, and realizing the people that are not helping, or the situations that are hindering you. So finding mentors, definitely. And that doesn't have to be a formal mentor. That could be somebody that's informal that you go, that person, every time I talk to them, they either give me really good advice, or I feel uplifted when I'm around that person. I'm going to seek out that person. So yeah, good people, and realizing when there's not good people, and removing yourself from that situation. Whether that be the leadership you're under, whether that be the people that you're around, your friends. Sometimes you've got to cut off friends. Sometimes, you know, but you've got to make sure that you are feeding your body and your brain every way you can with the right things to get to where you need to go, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I said mine in the beginning, but yeah, having that goal, knowing what you're fighting for, knowing where you're going, and then your why. I'm a big why person. I've become a massive why person. Stop, anyway. I've become a massive why guy. Like, when I made Bentley. Stop. Yeah, when you know your why, when you're focused on that, it's kind of like the whole thing. It's kind of that goal, but you know why you're actually doing it with emotions, and that it actually really powers you. He thinks somebody's here, but there's nobody there. Yeah, it's your body. I know your why is to bark at everyone, to protect everyone. And then for me, mentor is a big one. Having good people around that pushed you. Heard a good saying last year from Tony Robbins. It was, you are the average of the top 7 people you hang around with. So hang around with some good fucking people and you'll be a good person. You know, so, and that was at a business conference. He's like, you know, if you hang around, he talks about a story of himself, hang around with, you know, some extremely sick, and he was like, I was a fish out of water. Literally, I'm putting those my words in that, but he's like, I was a fish out of water, did not feel like I was meant to be there. And one of the guys, most successful person on that airplane or whatever, was like, you're probably the most qualified to be here. He's like, we go anywhere and everybody's like, Tony Robbins, blah, 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 not me, who's made $7 billion last year. He's like, you know, it's kind of, he's like, be around those top 7 people so you push yourself and you get the experience from them to where you want to get to. So having that mentor type thing. That would be my 3 things I would say.
Cool. Well, we've got the double Chris this week. What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
The Chris's.
I'm gonna make it happen again.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if you guys are listening or watching with YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe and review and do all the fun things. It really helps us out. Share it with someone that you think could take something away from this. Leave a nice comment. Say thanks to Chris for joining us today. Yeah, definitely.
I've got plenty of time on my hands now.
And yeah, until the next one, take care.